Hey everyone, welcome. We're just going to give about a minute here to let some more of the attendees come in since we just opened the room. Um, but we'll get started here probably about 1:02. While we are waiting for more people to join, I'm just going to share some links in the chat. Probably share these a few times here over the first couple minutes. Um, but a link to our website, a link to our shared notes file for following along with today, as well as a link to our slides. Hoping that this is not the editing link to our slides. I'm going to go ahead and just kind of get started with some beginning so we can give our panelists as much time as possible. Thank you so much for coming today to our second session for the CLIR Climate Resiliency Action Series. Today's workshop is going to be on skills-based programming. So we're super excited to welcome four great panelists and our moderator today, who are going to kind of work with us through a variety of programs that are tangible and hands-on and things that you can start at your institution and talk about how they've done those things themselves. So I'm really excited to hear them talk about it in more detail. You can follow the link in the chat to our shared notes or the QR code there on the screen. We encourage you to please keep notes along with us as we go through. Next slide. Our series has 6 thematic sessions. So each of these sessions are focused on a different topic, and I'm going to preview those just in a second for you. You're today at one of what we call our thematic sessions. These are more formal. They're in a webinar setting. So all of you are without a camera or a microphone as attendees, but you're welcome to communicate with us via the chat or via the question and answer at the bottom. If you are really excited about the topic and you want to engage some more, we encourage you to participate in our climate circles. These are community-led. This takes place in a kind of a more normal Zoom situation, and we'll have the leads of the climate circles just kind of pop in here at the end and talk to us after the session. Justin Wadlin and Lisa Spiro, who are the co-leaders of the Climate Justice Working Group for DLF. And we also, throughout the year, are having some in-person networking. So we've been to some panels and some conferences. We've got some more that we're hoping to start advertising soon. We'll let you know where we're going to be. But if you're doing anything climate and libraries related that you would like to kind of connect with us at a conference coming up, please let us know. We're happy to kind of advertise that for you and work with you and collaborate as we go forward. And then the last part is developing our community toolkit. So the CLIR Climate Resiliency Action Series, we really want everyone who attends any of our sessions to leave with something that they feel like they can apply at their own institution. We're really excited to, perpetually archive the recordings of these sessions, our shared note documents, as well as a bank of resources, community connections. We're also going to be putting together a glossary, and we have from Jennifer Waxman a nice timeline about issues like resiliency. So we hope to keep building on that. If you've got ideas or would you'd like us to kind of share to your resource that you've created, we are happy to do that. So we'd be thrilled to incorporate that as well. Next slide. Okay, so you are at the orange. This is our second session on skills-based climate programming, excuse me. We are going to be meeting again after the Thanksgiving break in the beginning of December, and we'll be having a session on combating climate anxiety through data. We will then, in January, pick up again with Indigenous knowledge and climate collaboration. move on in March to place-based planning, which is really focused on kind of working with your local government and your NGOs. And then we will end in April on our panel with big data and the preservation problem. And you can read more about each of these on our website, as well as all of the speakers that are presenting at these sessions. So I encourage you to pop into our sessions area, take a look. Each one of their registrations is separate. You can see that they're kind of a little bit uneven timing for the beginning of the year, but then we settle into a noon Eastern time for the ones in the spring term. Okay, next slide. And I just want to thank, before we launch into the session, IMLS for the National Leadership Grant that helped us to fund this program, from CLIR, Wayne Graham, and Alice Rubin, who help us keep the wheels on this program. We have an advisory committee that comes out of the Climate Justice Working Group, which includes Lisa Spiro, Justin Wadland, Amy Dreyer, and Lena Zental. And our curriculum committee was, and the whole curriculum that is this program was put together by Jennifer Waxman, Jennifer Embry, who's the moderator today, Jody Gray, Trevor Bond, and Steve Diggs. And of course, to all of our speakers, we're so excited to have so many people who are participating in this series. Next slide. All right, so I'm going to turn it over to Jen to kind of take today's session, and I hope you'll all join me in the shared notes document. Thank you.
Great, thank you so much. All right, so hello everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today for this really exciting panel session. We have such an amazing slate of speakers here from many different backgrounds and different professional and personal experiences. So I hope it will be a really informative and inspiring session for all of you that are attending. This panel session, as you heard, will focus on highlighting skills-based climate programming. So as climate change continues to greatly affect all the regions of the world, we're seeing it in the United States in various ways all the time, there seems to be a growing desire and sometimes a need for a lot of us that are really passionate about this within institutions like libraries, archives, museums, and galleries, as well as other nonprofits, to help support our communities in becoming more climate resilient and climate literate. And one of the most effective engagement tools, as you all know, that we use frequently is programming to connect with our communities, right? So skills-based programming in particular, which for the purposes of this program, we're defining as the kind of programming that encourages participants to learn and apply practical skills like gardening or mending clothes, repairing items, cooking, seed saving, identifying native plants, foraging, like engaging in climate-related citizen science projects. Like I think about like identifying invasive species, as just a few examples, can be particularly effective in helping slowly build up a culture of climate resiliency within our communities. And what these skill building opportunities provide our communities with are options, right? So these types of programs empower people by not only giving them opportunities to learn or participate in something they may have never known about before, but also by giving them foundational knowledge and a skill that they can then apply in their own lives where they can. So even just providing opportunities or like creating certain points of access to resources in our communities can allow them to learn or engage in more sustainable practices that can lead to climate literacy, skill building, and then ultimately climate resiliency as well. So those types of programs include like sustainability swaps or library displays, seed libraries, food fridges, those types of things. So in today's workshop, you'll hear about so many different types of climate-related programming ideas from our panelists. They'll talk about various programs that they've successfully implemented, but they'll also provide insight into like the processes behind designing and planning such sort of programming. And they'll also talk about the importance of partnerships in making these types of programming possible and discuss some of the challenges that they face and how they've handled it as well. Okay, so you're going to hear from two librarians today, Mandy Goodset from Cleveland State University, who is an academic librarian, and Teresa Bolton from the Kansas City Public Library, who is a public librarian. And you'll also hear from two individuals working in the nonprofit sector. So the first is Kate Miller-Corcoran. She is the Food as Medicine Coordinator for the Rural Health Network of South Central New York. And Kate works at the intersection of health, food, and food justice. And you'll hear her talk about how she channels her nonprofit work through a partnership with the local public library in this area. And lastly, you'll hear from Michael Washburn, who is the preservation director at the nonprofit Seed Savers Exchange, which is an organization that works tirelessly to educate and connect individuals through the collection, regeneration, and sharing of seeds, plants, and their unique stories. So as far as how the panel will run today, each panelist will talk for about 10 to 15 minutes about the types of programs that they have done. I'll briefly introduce each panelist by reading their bio before their section, and then hopefully we will have 30 minutes at the end of the session for questions from the audience. So please feel free to add your questions to the Q&A throughout the presentation. We'll return to them at the end during the discussion portion. Okay. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce our first panelist today, Mandy Goodset. So Mandy is the Performing Arts and Humanities Librarian and Open Educational Resources and Copyright Advisor at Cleveland State University. She's the past coordinator for the American Library Association's Sustainability Roundtable, a co-founder of the Academic Library Association of Ohio's Sustainability Interest Group, and the founder of her library's Sustainability Interest Group. So she's clearly very interested in sustainability, if you couldn't tell. Her research focuses on misinformation, open education, and library sustainability. So I'm now going to hand it over to Mandy.
Awesome. Thanks, Jen. Hi, everybody. Thank you so much to Jen and all of the CLIR folks for inviting me to participate in this webinar of very inspiring speakers. I feel very honored to be included. So Jen already introduced me, but again, my name is Mandy Goodset, and I'm a subject librarian at Cleveland State University. And I just finished up my term this past summer as the coordinator of the American Library Association's Sustainability Roundtable. And as Jen already told you, I'm also kind of the leader of my own library sustainability team. So I am hoping to give you all some ideas for how academic library workers can promote climate resilience and sustainability in their work. But I think even if you're not an academic librarian, hopefully this will give you some practical ideas. Next slide. Oh, there we go. So before I dive in, I do want to acknowledge that promoting sustainability programming in academic libraries has some unique challenges. So for one thing, when it comes to facilities and services, academic libraries are kind of embedded into a larger campus, and the decision-making power for some activities may rest outside of the library's control. For example, at my library, we can't really make many changes to our building structure, in part because we are the first 5 floors of a 20-story old asbestos-filled building, so that limits what we can do. Another challenge is that everything that academic library workers do must really be in service of academic success and support of our students. So sometimes that limits what we can focus on. So for example, I have to really make a case that a fun program about seed libraries or a workshop about electric vehicles is relevant to what we do in academic libraries. And for this reason, it can be difficult in general to make a case to administrators and others that sustainability-related actions are an important priority in academic libraries. But all of that said, and I think those who are, have opted to be here would agree, climate resiliency is absolutely essential to our work in academic libraries. And the more we think through our work through that lens of climate resiliency, I think the more ideas can surface and the more connections you can make. So I have some examples of what we've been able to do at my own library. And if we go to the next slide. So I thought of ideas in the categories of building community, raising awareness, and being responsible stewards. So I hope that my examples spark your imagination. All right, next slide. So the first idea I have is just simply to create a sustainability team. It's not a huge lift, either within your library or if your campus doesn't have a team, could be a campus-wide team. And then I have a link I can put in the shared document. I'll put all my links in the shared document when we're done. But we created a LibGuide about our sustainability team and all the activities we've done, so you can check that out. You might be surprised if you put out a call what coworkers come out of the woodwork that want to do sustainability work. And then if you're on a campus with a sustainability officer or office, coordinating with them is a good idea as well. Next slide. Another thing you can do is to have an internal or external, if you want to share with your wider community, a sustainability swap event. So a swap event is simply an event that invites folks to bring in items from home that are perfectly usable, but no longer of interest to the owner. And then others just shop for items, and everything they want to take home, they take home for free. And there's a lot you can do with this idea. Obviously, it reduces waste, but it also builds community. So you can have people also bring in baked goods or have a potluck. You can have themes for your swap, like an office supplies swap or a holiday decoration swap. One year we did a swap right after the holiday season for all of the things that people got that they didn't really want, the gifts that they wanted to get rid of. And then you can also do things like have crafts or trivia. So one year, I taught folks how to turn an old t-shirt into a shopping bag, which is very easy to do. And so then people could actually have a little bag for their shopping as well. So it was fun and easy. Next page. So in the category of raising awareness, if you're looking for something to do that clearly ties into an academic library's mission, one thing you could do is offer a faculty speaker series, because this is clearly important to kind of amplify and support faculty research. So several years ago, we did do this, and we featured faculty research from the School of Business, our Urban Studies Department, Biology Department, and the School of Engineering. And then for each presentation, we paired the faculty researcher with someone from the community who was doing hands-on work in the same area. So sustainability touches on the work of arguably every field of study. So find someone with expertise on your campus and amplify their important work. Next slide. So our library is kind of reducing the number of physical book displays that we put up, but we've had some really great success creating sustainability related displays, especially during Earth Month. We've had displays about reducing plastic waste, so that's the one that you're seeing here. We've also had ones about climate justice. And a really simple thing to do is just have a display about sustainability, but organized by discipline so that, you know, whatever major a student is who's walking by can see some books related to their major. We've also had luck including like QR codes to ebooks in our physical displays, and also creating entirely virtual displays, because so many sustainability related books published recently are only as ebooks. So that's a great way to kind of deal with that. Not only is this a good way to highlight our collection, it also helps us identify where our collection could use some more sustainability content. And I would also mention, you can see on the slide, the little whiteboard. That's an easy thing you can do as well. We just ask students like, what's one sustainability related thing that you do? And they shared all kinds of fun ideas there. Next slide, please. So just like all of you who are participating in the Circle Book Club, my campus used the All We Can Save book to create a book club last year in partnership with our sustainability office. This book is amazing, and the topics of the book really resonated with our students and faculty, and we had some really great discussions that resulted in like actual actions that we wanted to take on our campus. So if you're participating in that book club through CLIR and it's of interest to you, maybe keep in the back of your mind, how could you adapt it for your own library community or your own campus community? And there are lots of other books that could work for a book club as well. We've used Braiding Sweetgrass, which I know is very popular. And one that I'd really love to use someday is a field guide to climate anxiety, because I think a lot of college students really do have a lot of anxiety about climate change. And so this is a way to kind of help them feel more empowered. Okay, next slide. So in the category of being responsible stewards, this is a tip for you for any kind of library. If you have events and you want to provide swag to people, these sustainability swag guidelines developed by SustainRT might help you choose items that are long-lasting, made of ethically sourced material, and can be disposed of responsibly. So you might want to check that out. You could also consider whether you even want to have swag at your event. Maybe you give your attendees something intangible, or just food. Food is always a hit and can be done pretty sustainably. Next slide. So before I turn it over to our next speaker, I wanted to let you know that ALA SustainRT has created a huge Zotero library of ideas and resources related to sustainability in libraries, and you do not have to be a member of SustainRT to check it out. So you can see in the programming folder alone, there are 149 ideas. So if you're looking for inspiration, check it out. I'm going to share all these links in the shared document so you can see them. I'm looking forward to the Q&A, but I do want to also say if you have any questions or if you want any of the resources needed for any of these programs that I mentioned so that you can try them out at your own library, please do not hesitate to reach out to me. But with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Jen.
Great. Thank you so much, Mandy. It was amazing. Okay, so I am very pleased to introduce our second panelist today, Kate Miller-Corcoran. So Kate Miller-Corcoran is the Food as Medicine Coordinator for the Rural Health Network of South Central New York, and she is also the president of the Broome County Public Library Board of Trustees. Broome County is a county in upstate New York. Kate works with community partners and program participants to get produce from local farms into the hands of community members, creating a healthy, vibrant future for all. Kate grew up rurally on her family's farm in Windsor, New York. Her work as a CSA farm share manager gave her hands-on experience with community food systems, sustainable agriculture, and how barriers to fresh food affect health outcomes. Kate also serves as a president of the Broome County Public Library Board of Trustees, where she helped spearhead the Farm to Library program. We're going to hear a lot more about that during her section. So I'm going to hand it over to you, Kate.
Thanks so much, Jen. I also had the honor of serving with Jen on that board, so that was wonderful. This morning, I actually opened my email and got a very appropriate and poignant headline, I thought, for this panel. The U.S. Agriculture Secretary Vilsack was visiting North Carolina to highlight federal resources available to help farmers and families and communities recovering from Hurricane Helene. So there we right away have that intersection and the importance of food systems and climate resiliency together. So that was just a great way to start my day, I guess. The Farm to Library program at the Broome County Public Library gives patrons an opportunity to try new produce or even simply remind themselves of how delicious a carrot right from the farm can be, you know, in comparison to the ones that maybe are taking a little longer to get to them and have more food miles. Fresh fruits and vegetables are available at no charge with no questions asked in a cooler located in the circulation department. So to give you a little bit of sense of our community, I won't go into too much detail, but like Jen said, we are in the southern tier of New York State. We're right above the Pennsylvania border. We're part of what is referred to as the Rust Belt, formerly known as the Steel Belt. So we have a declining population. We have a lot of obesity, food insecurity, and a lot of folks that are living at or below what the United Way calls asset limited, income constrained employed, or ALICE. Meaning that many folks struggle to make ends meet even though they're employed. So long story short, there are many families in our communities that are not going to risk a limited budget to try new produce because of the cost. And we know that it's really important for people to have plants in their diets, not just for their own health outcomes, but for our planet. We were inspired by a program that is run by the Southern Adirondack Library System by the exact same name. They were amazing and gave us lots of their resources. And it was the organization that I work for that actually reached out first to the library, because we know that libraries are serving a similar population, especially our public libraries. Our Food and Health Network staff actually saw an article and we got super excited and we thought about all the connections we had and we went to the library. We knew that our biggest hurdles would probably be the Board of Trustees because we are putting a cooler in a circulation department that can have all sorts of interesting things happen to it, let's just say that. And also we wanted to get the blessing of the Friends of the Library because they are a 501c3 and can hold funding. Luckily, I'm on the board. That was a nice bonus for that. And public health really has become such a focus of both our library board and our Friends of the Library. Because just like everybody on this call, I'm sure realizes that the library really serves as a knowledge commons, an information hub for folks. And there's lots of different kinds of literacies, food, health literacy, and environmental literacy, obviously being very important. You can go to the next slide, Jen, if you want to show the cooler. So ultimately, the goals are to expand food access and environmental knowledge by eliminating any kind of means testing for participation in this. So a lot of times folks who want to utilize pantries have to prove their income, prove their where they live. This, no questions asked. We don't care how much money you make or don't make. We don't care what you're doing for a living or where you live. Just please try produce. We also recognize that it operates throughout the library's hours. Sometimes pantries or places where you could go to maybe get some food that was less expensive are open for very particular hours, and libraries are just open so much longer. And of course, there's the opportunity to work with others to provide nutrition, cooking, gardening, environmental education. I mean, it's a library, it's all right there. So just a perfect partnership. So we really wanted to create access to local food to remind people what is available. We wanted to remind people to support local farmers because those farmers are likely practicing better soil health than the large corporate farms that are, at the grocery stores, and really keeping those food miles down. So this was successful because of our collaborations. No one working in nonprofits or libraries has any real extra time, right, to be putting together new pilot programs. So we really were able to lean in and bring capacity to our library to get this started. We had us, the Rural Health Network, that brought in my expertise, and an AmeriCorps member. If you're not familiar with AmeriCorps, please look it up. It is a great program, and it is definitely helps with that capacity building in the public health realm. Of course, we worked with the library. The administration was very, very excited, and they were already bringing in folks from the local extension, cooperative extension, to do programming. So this kind of tied it all together, and when people were growing things, they had a place maybe to bring it. We also, like I mentioned before, worked with the Friends of the Library. They helped us find volunteers. So when we first started, we were buying in a lot of produce, going to the farm to get it. So our produce fairies would go and get the veggies and bring it back. They were really listening to what the community was their reaction to what they were bringing in. So that was wonderful. And we also worked with our health department. So they were doing a creating healthy schools and communities project where they had grant funding that they could give us funding for the cooler and for shelving and all those nice accoutrements that went with it. So we pushed all of our resources together, and we're able to launch this program. Something else that we are working towards is community growers. So that piece where folks are committing to grow a row so that they can bring it in and donate it to the library, because we believe that the community supporting this is what will really make it last. But we were able to get our master gardeners from our local extension excited about this past year, and they grew all of their teaching gardens. So I think they have 24 beds. They grew all of that food for this produce cooler. So they were really active in helping us spread the word too. So those collaborations are so important. And our university, of course, interns, Jen connected us with a wonderful intern who was able to help us really make those connections and support us and give each of us that we're doing our own work a little bit extra capacity. So that was really, really wonderful. Like I said earlier, food security and climate resiliency go hand in hand. Both are public health concerns that our communities really do need to have that information about. So Farm to Library and the programming that surrounds it gives the public free access to a better understanding on how to navigate those possible challenges and solutions. A third of all human-caused greenhouse gases is linked to food, producing food, transporting food, food waste. So helping our communities understand how growing and eating more plants isn't just healthier for them physically and mentally, but healthier for the planet is really important. Our food system is also vulnerable to that climate change. So just as food systems are affecting climate change, it's going the other way as well, disrupting food availability and reducing food access. So really getting this out there has given us an opportunity to start with food, but have these bigger conversations. So I'm really excited to continue to hear my fellow panelists and all of the ways that they're bringing that to their libraries.
Awesome. Kate, thank you so much. That was so wonderful. Okay, if you have questions for Kate, you can put them in the chat and we can return to them during the discussion. I am very excited to introduce our third panelist here. This is Teresa Bolton. Teresa Bolton is the Director of Central Library Operations for the Kansas City Public Library. She has worked at the Central Library for over a decade, and 4 years ago, she had the opportunity to help manage the Seed Library at its Ruiz branch, which has become her work happy place. So she is an avid gardener and is excited to share her passion through gardening and environmentally themed programming and partnerships with you today. I am going to turn it over to Teresa.
Great, thank you very much. I got a little slide happy, so I'm just going to go ahead and say that up front. It's hard to do gardening programming and not take 5,000 pictures and want to share them all. So, right up front. So like Jennifer said, I'm Teresa Bolton. I've worked for the Kansas City Public Library for over a decade. And our Reese Library hosts our seed library, but it also hosts a native wildflower garden. So it is kind of our example. And we do a lot of programming actually in the garden and release butterflies and all those kinds of things right in our garden. It's we're very lucky. We have a 100-year lease with the Parks Department. So we're actually on parkland and it's beautiful. So into Kansas City, shout out, come visit us. I have a couple of different things I want to talk about, the skills-based programming that we're all here to talk about, but also knowledge building lecture series that we have at the library, because I feel like the more knowledge that people have, the more they're want to care. And if you can't get them to care, they're not going to build the skills. So that's like one of the first things to do. And then if you do have issues with administration or other departments or whatnot, some kind of sneaky ways that we've been able to get nature into other people's programs at the library. So next slide, Jennifer. So the first thing I'm going to talk about is Science Matters. Science Matters is co-hosted with the Linda Hall Library. Linda Hall is is on the campus of the UMKC, but it is not, it's a separate entity. They're a private library that focuses on academic, science, engineering, and technology. So their focus is on that, but they also have an arboretum there, and they have a wonderful bird book collection and all those things. So we've taken a little bit of some sustainability. We do a lot of programming on local plants. There's a slide up here that shows you that it's mushroom season. We did how to hunt for mushrooms. But then we've also done infrastructure. So like, how does this bridge building affect things? How many pounds of concrete does that have? How much TIF money did that get? How much city supports resources are going to that project versus other things? And things like walkability and bikeability of the city. One of our favorite speakers is the city engineer, and he is all about bike lanes. So it is awesome. Next slide. So one of the things I like to share about Science Matters is it is 5 years old. I'm so proud. I'm a little proud. No humble brag here for Teresa Bolton. It is the longest running partnership of the Kansas City Public Library as far as programming goes. And so we have had this for 5 years, and we get anywhere between 25 and 110 people in person. And then we also do it online. And Linda Hall made the very quick switch during COVID when we were all shut down. We took a month off and we're right back online. So we love doing that. And once you get 110 people to come to a program, your public affairs department starts paying attention and starts wanting to help. They're going to do a couple of signature events each year for science related topics. So that's really, really cool. And so next slide. So how did we do that? So I am not a huge networker person. I'm actually pretty introverted. Things like this make me nervous. But I do have my stack of cards, and we're at a networking event, and there'll be someone from for example, the Nelson Atkins Art Museum. And I'm like, oh, I wonder what they can do about science. I wonder what they can talk about science. And they have art restoration, and that's science. But they also have beautiful gardens, and they have one of the city's largest picnics. So, that's when I start handing out my card. I think, what could you do for us? And I really only take like 2 minutes of people's time. I'm not a pushy person. You want to build allies. You don't want to bully people. So when they're like, "Oh my God, that's that Teresa person," I don't want to talk to her. So I take their card, and then I have a pre-made email that I just pop in my email. I'm like, "Hey, I'm still looking for January, February, and March. These are the people that have spoken before. Here's a link to a Facebook example, so you can see what the lectures have been like. You don't have to bring a live goat, but if you do bring a live goat, you're going to get 110 people. And then if I don't hear back from them, that's fair. We, like everyone before us has said, and I'm sure everyone after is going to say, we were busy people. So I never, if someone doesn't have time to talk, someone doesn't have time to come to do a presentation, that is fine. You want to make sure though that you keep those relationships good. That's how you're going to maybe down the road get them to do something. So who do I send those asks to? Jennifer, if you next slide. Here's some pictures, like actual skill building in case you do need to be able to handle an owl. We did have a live owl that flew across Kirk Hall. That got 180 people. That sold out. It was crazy. But one of the skill building things that we really like to do is the citizen science aspects. So we had someone from the Missouri Bird Observatory come, and she did a lecture about citizen science and all those wonderful apps on your phone. There's a new app, by the way, called Bee Machine out of the University of Missouri. So if you're looking for AI is actually better at looking at bees and discerning them than the naked eye. And you don't have to kill them. You just take pictures. So you don't have to take them back. So anyway, shout out to those people. All right. So who do I ask and what do I try to get them to do? Next slide, Jennifer. Somebody already mentioned the extension office. I am a reoccurring master gardener. I've been through the program a couple of times, and I'm doing it again. Master gardeners are wonderful people. They want to come and help you. They want to share their knowledge. They work with the extension office, who happens to also do a lot of food programs. And then the master naturalists are awesome too. So they all do like distinctive things, but they all are willing to work together, and it's all free. And so if you don't know any of these people, they could be your best friends. So get to know them. Department of Agriculture, Department of Conservation, Fish and Game. The zoo has come out and done 2 of our most popular exhibits. One was about their conservation efforts, and one was about the new aquarium. We mentioned everyone's busy. So those folks at the Nature Center might be really busy and have a hard time doing a program. That's okay. We're going to pay you back. We're going to come as a library and do story time for you. We're going to come as the library and bring our maps that the city gave us, and we're going to do a nature walk with everybody. So make sure you pay, when you have the opportunity to pay people back or do reciprocal programming, please do that. The city government, right? Government has such a bad rap right now. No one like government, but they offer a ton of free programming. The water department comes out and talks about sewers. It's important. Everyone that rakes their leaves down the sewer, right? To the sewer drains. Oh my gosh, you're killing the water department by doing that. Don't do that. So they'll come out, they're engaged, historic preservation boards, what you can do on historic houses to make them more green. They'll do all of those things. And like I said, the city engineer, our city engineer is amazing, and he loves to come out. If your city is not part of the City Nature Challenge, look it up. It is great. It is a week of citizen science. Kansas City has participated since its beginning, I think, and the zoo and one of our nature centers here are the kind of the key people, but we offer, the library has space, right? We have a built-in audience sometimes. And so we're perfect to partner with those organizations that actually don't have those things. So again, and I also do some some for-profits. I'm going to go ahead and say that. We have a beekeeper and a goat herder. They deserve honorariums. So if you can pay an honorarium to get somebody on the outside of the city to bring in some goats, do that, because it is amazing. Next slide, please. And sometimes it is hard to get people to come. And Mandy said, swag is hard to, I agree with you. Like, none of us need another plastic cup that's branded. But we do give away things when we can. So we give away, we've given away birdseed kits. So if you're doing citizen science about outdoor birding and you want to get the backyard bird count in the wintertime, give people everything they need to make a little birdseed ball, right? Kids love it. It's cute. You can give them out during story time. The nature journals we give out, so people make little, little nature journals on where they've walked. We give them colored pencils and stickers and maps where they can go. And then we do seed bombs. Who doesn't love to make a seed bomb? Like, everyone loves to do that and loves to, throw them out in the yard. And it is so much fun. Everyone likes to get their hands dirty. So we give all of those things away. Next slide. I promised Jennifer I'd get through this whole slideshow in 10 minutes. So, and anything I have, I'm happy to link to, so you can take it slower at your own pace, because you might just want to stare at this picture. So we do have a wildflower garden at the Reese Library, like I said. And we had so many monarchs this year. It was so amazing. We had these caterpillars right here are swallowtails. So I don't want anyone to correct me, but those are swallowtails. But we had a lot of monarchs, and it's just beautiful. So by having the garden, we're just really living our mission, and it gets people in the door, right? Like, they see it, they stop, they want to volunteers do this. So let's say you'd love to have a library, but HR doesn't want you to have a library or a garden. HR doesn't want you to have a garden because HR doesn't want you to use tools. That's okay. The master gardeners will come and work on it. The Boy Scouts will come and work on it. The Girl Scouts will come and work on it. There's so many. If you want your neighborhood associations are probably always asking for free rooms. Trade your free room instead of charging them the $65. Trade that for them doing your garden. Right? I mean, they're usually, again, more than happy to do it. Next slide, please. All right. So at the Reese Library, what we did 4 years ago while the library was closed down for COVID was we took our one meeting room and we took and kind of just said, this is the new seed library. So the seed library, like many of yours, was a seed catalog. When we reopened after COVID, it was the entire meeting room. We took a lot of our programming money that we couldn't spend because we couldn't have people in the buildings, and we bought all of the things. And this is one of the ways that we celebrated our 10th anniversary of the Seed Library, was with a Communa Bee wall. And so we bought different frames and those little shadow boxes, and I don't know, we have sketch paper, all the things. And we have had collage events. The ones that look professional are from the Urban Sketchers. You might have an Urban Sketcher group in your city, and they are amazing. And they will come in and teach people how to sketch for free. They'll hold little classes, and they'll leave their art behind, which is amazing. So we have one of these at several of the libraries, not in this shape, of course, but of the building or the neighborhood or whatever. And they are wonderful people. And it gives everyone, like, you can tell some of them were done by kids, right? And we love that, because now the kids come and they're like, point to the things in the seed library and it's theirs. Like, they have ownership of that space, and it really makes them connect to the library and to the garden there, because they really, it's theirs. Once a kid has let a monarch go and put something on the wall at the library, like, it's part of the library. And to show you how cute it can be, next slide, Jennifer, because I love cute things. Look at that. Yeah. Her mom did one of the sketches So you can imagine that this little tiny one's going to be in the library a lot. So it's just adorable. And we have little tiny ones you can see over there on the other side. If someone would just take a minute, they can do one that's that big. So we're adding to that. You can also see around the cute baby, the containers for the seeds and everything. So we've really gotten a lot of help with the seed library recently. Next slide, please. Everyone's talked about community partners. Most of you have the extension office, but there's also nonprofit gardens in a lot of cities, and ours is the Kansas City Community Gardens, and that's where you can go and get a plot and grow your own food or flowers. It's also where you can go and learn. You can also go and buy honey, but they have a orchard. They have a beanstack garden for kids. We did story time there to get Ben to come work for us. So again, that trade-off when you can. And Ben came and did a 101 gardening series for us. And he did it at numerous locations. So we even went in and put it on the calendar and the website and everything for all the branch managers. So we're all busy, right? Can you imagine like a branch manager, like, oh, we've planned it. We've got your person. We've got your supplies. All you have to do is open the door. And then they met Ben, and now they all want to have Ben back. So it was fabulous. Plug and play programming is amazing when you can find it. And okay, next slide. So sneaky ways to get nature in the forefront of your programming. If you're doing gaming, have you ever played Arboretum or Wingspan? Right? Instead of playing some of the the dystopian games, play fun games. Play like Wingspan is amazing, and you can actually even play it by yourself. Not that I have to play games by myself, but you know what I mean. Exercise programs are huge. Take a walk around your neighborhood. Civic programming, invite the Parks and Rec board down to let people know. You're not the only overworked library employee. Everyone is, so offer programming. Next slide, please. All right. Oh, I did this slide twice. One more time. Okay. So if art is big in your institution, we have art displays. If story time is huge in your organization, make it a nature theme book. If you have outreach, we have a bookmobile. We have packed up and given the bookmobile seeds to hand out. And next slide. This is we have if you have a garden and open space, use it as an actual space instead of a space to walk through. Just that joy of people coming in. It also de-escalates things. People come in angry in your public library. No one walks through this garden angry. Everyone that comes in this building is in a good mood once they've seen some monarchs flying around, right? Next slide. These were the backpacks. I've included the inserts, so I hope we can get the link to those. So we got an IMLS grant, and this is one of the things they paid for, these really cool backpacks. And the next slide. We have a propagation station, also community run. We have all these plants, but people bring cuttings from their own house. People come and engage. We have over 1,000 hits on our Facebook page about the propagation station. So if you can do something like that, it's super cool. And you just need water and some mason jars. I mean, right? Like that's a no-brainer, easy peasy, free thing, basically. And the next and last slide is my contact information. And I gave Amy Morris's contact information there too, because she is the heart of the seed library. I'm not going to take credit for all the wonderful work she has done down there building community, because she is the rock star over there on the west side. Okay, thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, Teresa. So a lot of programming going on in Kansas City for sure. It's so cool. Okay, I am very excited to introduce our fourth and final speaker here today. This is Michael Washburn. Michael serves as the Preservation Director at Seed Savers Exchange in Decorah, Iowa. If I pronounce that wrong, you can correct me, Michael. Where they maintain a collection of 20,000 varieties of heritage garden seeds and apples. The Preservation Department works to educate about the importance of preserving biodiversity through seed stewardship. It provides programming and other opportunities that engage gardeners, farmers, seed savers, and breeders with their collections. Michael is a longtime seed saver focusing on Southern U.S. and Middle Eastern varieties. Over time, much of his work has focused on diverse organic farming systems and traditional farming practices. So I'm so excited for Michael to talk today about some of the programs that Seed Savers Exchange offers. Over to you, Michael.
Yeah, thanks so much, Jennifer. I appreciate it. Yeah, so, kind of what we're doing is, we're preserving and, circulating this biodiversity, and, we rely heavily on our community to do this work. So it's a community of seed savers and gardeners, farmers, teachers doing this work, because, we definitely can't do it alone. So next slide, please. Yeah, and that last slide was just a picture of kind of the field where we're, it's a former evaluation manager, good friend of mine I've known forever, but just out kind of evaluating the field. So you go out there and taking notes on what we're seeing and observations and whatnot. So that's kind of a setting that you can see out in the fields with particular varieties of certain crop types and collecting that information in the field. And so it's nice to have gardeners there telling you what they're observing while somebody else is taking down the data. So that's kind of what that next picture is. Yeah, thanks for jumping back, Jennifer. Yeah, so and so this mission that we rely on this community to do is, we're stewarding America's culturally diverse and endangered garden and food crop legacy for present and future generations. So, like Jennifer said, we're educating and connecting people through this process of collecting, regenerating these seeds, and then sharing those heirloom seeds, plants, and really importantly, the stories as well. So yeah, thank you. And so, kind of what is stewarding? What we're trying to do is, so we've got this seed bank, but and that's what's helping us keep these alive. So so the seed bank is helping keep these alive. So we got to keep these alive, all the seeds and the apple trees and the sunchokes and the potatoes and tissue culture. We've got to keep them all alive. And then, we also collect the stewardship histories of these varieties. Folks are more likely to take on the stewardship if they have a good stewardship story and it's something that they can connect with. So if I can tell you, oh, this was raised by so-and-so in this region, and people will find a connection to that and generally are more likely to take on that stewardship. So we're fortunate to have two historians in our department that as soon as we get a new donation, we've got somebody that, goes and talks with that family and everybody they can to gain those stories in time, because often when varieties come to us, they're coming to us with people maybe on up in their age or don't have somebody else to take on that stewardship. So that information is vital to have. And so we try to collect that as soon as possible. I think the downside of this is, varieties have such a long stewardship history. Many times we don't have the indigenous stewardship history. Sometimes we do, but unfortunately we don't have, the full story, but we capture as much as we possibly can. And so then what we're trying to do is we're trying to take these seeds and trying to get them into folks' hands that'll take on that stewardship. And so in order to do that, we have to create pathways that there's public access to these seeds, and then create the programming around that'll encourage people to work with these seeds, and then also provide the education that builds the skills needed for the success of the stewardship. And so this is a picture of inside one of our areas of seed. This would be the main preservation seed bank. We don't go in here much. This is we keep a little bit of every single variety, and that's around 20,000 plus varieties that we have in the seed bank. We are currently the largest non-governmental seed bank, but unlike the USDA, we provide public access to these seeds. And so that's a picture of kind of the inside of. I don't like to call it the vault because that seems not accessible. So it's truly a bank. And so, and again, this was created by donations. It wasn't created by us going out and seeking seeds. Maybe early on, Kent and Diane Wheely were, grabbing varieties from, seed catalogs or certain things, and, that they thought might have gone out of publication or availability. But for the most part, this collection's been built by donations for folks looking for an additional steward. They don't have somebody to pass that down to, or the kids are cleaning out grandma's freezer and finding these seeds, but they're not gardeners themselves. So what do we do with these? Well, lots of times those come to Seed Savers Exchange, and that's why it's important to have those historians grabbing all that information at the same time. But yet, if they just sit around in this freezer here, they would be considered functionally extinct. And so it's great to have them there, but if they just sit there, they are functionally extinct. So we have to make sure, like I said, that we maintain the viability and then design ways to get them into gardeners and farmers' hands so they can continue to adapt in our ever-changing climate. And this is where we think that varieties are truly preserved. It's in the hands of gardeners, it's in the hands of farmers, educators, and then ultimately on the plates of the consumers, because that's the whole process. We want things that are tasty and good, and so we just need them out there living and interacting with humans, and that's where they will continue to persist. Next slide, please. So the work that we do on the farm, there's two reasons we really grow out a variety. It's to increase the quantity. If we don't have a quantity enough of something to provide it to the public, we're going to increase that quantity so we can make it available to the public. And then if germinations are really low, we've got to continue to keep those germination rates high so we maintain the viability. And then also when we get these seeds into farmers and gardeners' hands, they can find success because as 20%, so anything below 30%, we're definitely going to work on. And that kind of, in our database says, hey, you really need to work on this one. So those are the two reasons we work on things on the farm. Next slide, please. So, but again, it's really a community that we really rely on to get so much of this work done, not only to regenerate these seeds, but also to understand the seeds that we really have. What traits do they have? And so we really rely on the community to help us understand our collection. And so this is where a lot of that skill-based climate programming comes into hand. Next slide, please. So I think, the ADAPT program, I think this has the most energy of any of the programs that we currently have. And I think there's a few reasons for that. So this is a community science project. And again, we're leaning heavily on farmers, gardeners, teachers to better understand the varieties that we have in the collection. We grow out things and we eval them, and we do a lot of tedious details in that. But this community science program, it's a trialing program. So basically what we'll do is we'll offer, this year we offered 11 trials. So 11 different crop types. Let's say a tomato, a sorghum, a collard. And so let's take collards, for example. We'll try to look at maybe 11 different varieties of collards. And so folks will sign up for a collard trial, and we'll send them 3 random varieties of collards. All right, and they'll grow those out and they'll take notes on it. Germination rates, vigor, disease resistance, and flavor, And so, while these are very, these aren't a lot of data points, but we find that these are really important data points. Does it grow well? Does it taste good? How's it performing in your region? Because that's what, that's essentially what a gardener is looking at. So this is really through the eyes of like what gardeners and farmers are really appreciating. And so what we found is people love to do this. So this last year, we had 700 people volunteer to run a trial. So they're volunteering ground space to grow at least 3 varieties of a crop type. And what we found with 700 participants, we did 1,500 trials. So participants are signing up for more than one trial. And in addition to that, what we've also found is, and again, engagement with the community really helps drive up the participant data that they're providing to us. So, we do focus on, engaging with them, answering questions, talking about these varieties with them. But with that engagement, we're getting 40 to 60% data return, which is extremely high, on a community science project like this. So we're finding that participants are really engaged in this, and therefore providing a lot of data to the collection that we're trying to continually understand. And then, on top of that, this really helps us understand regional performance, and so while we have these different variety, like same varieties out in different regions of the US, we can see where they're rating well. How are they growing? Where are we seeing disease? Where are we not? And again, are they liking them? So we can get some really some really good regional data about this. And so what I think is important about this is, well, there's a lot of effort towards breeding. We also think that we have a lot of genetic diversity in the seed bank, and we can identify where these varieties are performing well right now, without having to work on them. But we need to identify where they grow best regionally. And so this ADAPT program really helps us out with that. And I'll actually kind of show you an interactive map that kind of is able to kind of show what it looks like across the US. And then also, this information helps us, it gives us good advice on maybe what we want to put in our catalog. Because if we're finding that there's certain varieties that are doing really well everywhere, well, then maybe that's a good variety to put in our catalog. And then once it's in the catalog, it becomes a very popular variety, and popularization of a variety essentially ends up saving that, because you've got multiple people out there in the world working with that variety. And then, yeah, go ahead and next slide, please. So here's that interactive map I was talking about. And so we use SeedLink, a good partner with us. It's a software platform, and it's a trialing platform. And so we have some people that just do it by paper and give us all the data on paper and send this in, but most people are using this interactive software platform called SeedLink, where they're recording the data in there. And there's also a social aspect to it. So people can like chat back and forth, almost like a Facebook, but just for for us plant nerds in there. And so, we can, hey, this is how this is doing here. What is everybody else seeing? And then you can click on it. You can look at a certain variety. You can look at Tabitha Dyke's collard and see who's been growing it and where it's performing well and what people are saying about it. So it's a really interactive space. And again, it's another space where this data is open access to the public. Again, we're just trying to make everything available, seeds and data and all this information available to the public. But what this shows you is how this, how much we rely on this community to help us understand the collection. And I think what is amazing about ADAPT is, I don't care if you're a first-time gardener, you've been doing it for 30 years, this is a program that anyone could get involved in. And we just want to know, what you're seeing. And so again, it's open to everybody of all skill levels. So if this is your first garden, man, jump in it, try it out. So we really like that. And yeah, next slide, please. And this is just kind of showing you this growth. We started this in 2018. And last year, we had 1,589 well, this was actually 2023. We had this community ran 1,500 trials, and we were over 1,700 this year. And then now, after an article in the U.S. in the Washington Post with a direct link to the ADAPT program, we have 3,000 people now signed up saying they're interested. Now, what we assume is that about 1,500 of those people will still sign up for trials, but that's going to double our engagement this year. And we'll probably get around 3,000 trials being ran across the US to help us understand that collection. And that's super valuable data. And with so many varieties to get through and to understand, that this community engagement is really helping us really fast track this work. All right. Yeah, I could go on adapt for forever, but I'm going to have to move on from there. And so, you know, before I started with Seed Savers Exchange a few years ago, I was involved in this Renew program. I've been intimately involved with Seed Savers Exchange, and the Renew program is for our more experienced seed savers across the country to basically essentially do the same work that we do. Varieties that, you know, we identify in the collection that we don't have enough of to share with the public, or their germination rates are low, we ask those seed savers to come into this program and essentially do those grow outs on their property and help us regenerate those seeds. They're able to keep a fair amount of those seeds, but they send back enough back to us, and we provide, you know, desirable populations, isolation distances. We talk them through and kind of, you know, make sure that, hey, if we're growing okra, you're about a half-mile away from anybody else growing okra. So it can make that difficult. But being able to tap into that network around the country allows us to get more of that seed work done, and therefore make that more of these seeds available to the public. And so this is something I was involved with a old bean collector buddy of mine for about 10 years before I actually joined Seed Savers Exchange. But it's a really fun and really helpful place that our community works within. All right, next one. And so I've got to unravel some confusion. So Seed Savers Exchange, many people don't know that the heart of the work we do is around seed preservation. You know, so if you're looking at the photo on the left, that's our catalog. That's our standard catalog. Comes out like Johnny's catalog or any of your other catalogs. It has about 660 varieties. Many of those varieties are from the collection, and many of those varieties are just kind of popular ones that people like to have. The exchange on the right, that is the heart, that is the foundation of Seed Savers Exchange. In this publication, that is your doorway, your access to the seed bank. There's 17,000 unique varieties available in this catalog. Unfortunately, we cannot put pretty pictures of all of them in there. So it is listed by name. But not only are all the varieties that we have enough quantity to share in the seed bank available to the public in this, and we also have an online version, so you can go to the Seed Savers Exchange website, and I guess we can get that thrown up in the chat, and you can access those seeds right away online without having to even get this catalog. But the other unique thing about the exchange, it was also this community of gardeners and seed savers that were instrumental in the building of Seed Savers Exchange. And so we have hundreds of seed savers and gardeners that list varieties that they steward and that they take on, and we coordinate with them to get what seeds they want to offer to the public into this publication and available online. So when you go in there, sometimes you're dealing straight with us and you're pulling a variety out of the seed bank. But sometimes you're on there and you're requesting a tomato from Regina Centauri. And so you're requesting that from a fellow seed saver. And so that's almost like this ongoing seed bank or this seed swap around the country. And so the exchange is a place that's, again, is open access to the seed bank, and then connects you to a wide community of seed savers. Okay, next slide, please. I just wanted to touch note on this, you know, because we have so many varieties that have come to us that are indigenous, that have indigenous stewardship. And so what we do, if anything, that we can find good information that they are connected to an indigenous community, tribe, we actually take those out of public availability, and then we try to reconnect those directly to those communities. So my historians just put together 100-page document of all Hopi varieties we have, so we can share that with the Hopi community. So because oftentimes names are just thrown on a variety, but these communities want to know, were these really stewarded by our community? So we've put the histories together to give as much information as we possibly can to them, to make sure that they're taking on stewardship of varieties that do have that are connected to those communities. All right. Next slide, please. And so this is kind of how this works. We've got this collection, we're getting it out into the ADAPT participants, and they're working and giving us data back. We're finding our more skilled seed savers, and we also put on a seed school to kind of teach those seed saving skills, so they can continue to work with us and help us regenerate those. And then as these seeds get out into the public, they're selecting for the traits, they're selecting for the desirable, they're evolving those in their community as we have climate change. And then we're wanting to put them back in the exchange and share them with the rest of our gardening community. And that's kind of how all that connects. So thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Michael. All right, so now we are going to move on to the discussion. We have about 20 minutes for that. I'm going to stop sharing my screen so that we can actually see everybody. And I will check the chat to see if anybody has asked any questions. I actually am having trouble getting to it because of the weird settings on my computer. Let's see, did anyone ask any questions? It doesn't look like any so far. So I have some questions to ask our panelists, but if you think of anybody, or if you can think of any questions, anyone in the audience, please feel free to post them. I'll start by saying, just kind of going from what Michael just talked about with the Seed Savers Exchange, I can think of so many different ways libraries can kind of collaborate or use the programs that he was talking about to create programming of their own without a lot of cost, right? So I'm thinking, like, Michael, would it be possible for like a library to sign up for a trial and like kind of integrate that into programming, like maybe for summer reading or something with students and things like that? So if they have like a small community garden, they can build programming around the trials, gathering that data and things like that, right? That's something you would be okay with.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
I think libraries are a great place to do that. And as you said, many are connected to gardeners, and we actually have some curriculum that can kind of go along with some of that trialing that we can offer, just maybe as a guide to kind of put some of that similar type stuff that might fit that library. But yeah, I think that's a great place for that.
Yeah, awesome. Okay. So I'm going to start because you touched a lot on some of the questions that I already had, but I think one of the things that can be really hard, like we talked about having limited resources in a lot of nonprofit institutions, especially in libraries, not a lot of time, not a lot of money. So how do you kind of find opportunities within that to work around and kind of keep motivated while you're doing it, right? I think that can be one of the hardest things with this type of programming is staying motivated to do this work when it can feel really crushing. It can also be very scary. A lot of times climate anxiety, like Mandy mentioned, is very real. And so how do you kind of combat that while still keeping up your motivation to do these types of programs? So I will start with Mandy, since you mentioned climate anxiety, if you'd like to answer that.
Yeah, that's a tricky one. I would say, in my experience, like taking action is the best way to combat anxiety. So I think the programs themselves can help us, but I also think like sustainability is actually a very diverse subject, and there are lots of ways that you can connect with it. So like I'm really passionate about food and eating. So Kate, I was like really fascinated listening to what you're talking about. So, but for some people it's about like biking or like Michael and Teresa, you were saying about gardening and plants. So there are lots of ways to connect to it. So I think finding a passion that drives you and also personally interests you is a nice way to kind of keep the momentum going.
Any other panelists want to kind of add?
Well, one of the things that keeps me going is just seeing the look on those little kids' face, because we do a whole summer program over at Reese. We have the kids from school, their summer camps come and visit us all summer long. And when you see the look on those little kids' face when they're in the garden and they hold a bug for the first time, or they taste real honey, real local honey for the first time or something, like that's just amazing. And so that's what keeps me going.
I also want to chime in and just remind everybody that changing people's behaviors is very hard. And so like reminding yourself that it's very hard what you're doing, but even a teeny tiny little bit of change is a little bit of change. So that child that holds that bug and gets excited, that is one little ripple. So sometimes just concentrating on those little things.
Yeah, I think that that's really important. I think of like I did a mending circle type workshop recently here, and it wasn't super well attended, but I still remember just one person that learned how to sew a button and how like in awe he was of being able to do that. And he just looked at me and he was just like, I never thought I would be able to do this. And it was just like, it's that one thing, right? It's not about getting 500 people to change their behavior, but even if you can get one person to engage with it and really care, it can be really rewarding and it's worth it, right? It's worth it for that. Okay, it does look like a question came in. This is from Michael Edson. So what are you learning from the people who attend or participate in your programs about public sentiments? RE, the climate emergency. Do you think your communities feel urgency? Are local attitudes changing? Is there any one of you that want to take that first question?
Well, in Kansas City, we're having some crime issues in Kansas City. So when you have a program on biking trails, people do like, some people will say, well, why are we spending money on this when we really need to be spending money on this? You know, why are we giving money to infrastructure when we should be giving money to the EMS or whatever? So it's educating those folks on funding sources are different, right? Like you can't actually take this budget and turn it around and put it into that budget. But also you have to think strategically for the future. If you're always being reactive for what's going on right now, you'll never get anything to be better down the road. So sometimes it's having those conversations, and sometimes people will just, walk away frustrated. But you can also ask those people like, well, who would you like to hear come and speak? So like, somebody wanted to talk about meteorology. So we finally did get a meteorologist to come and talk in December, because we're having these wild changes right now. It's 40-degree winds outside the window today in Kansas City. So just kind of like bringing people back to focus and asking them, well, what do you want to see? And then going about, can you find that thing for them in that topic?
Yeah, and for us, when I see, this participation growth in the ADAPT program, one thing I commonly hear from gardeners is like, well, and especially some of the old timers, this variety isn't doing as well as it used to. I'm starting to see more pests here, or, these aren't handling this drought here, or the extremes. I've got this mustard goes to bolt a lot faster now because it can't handle these fluctuations like that. So I think, and that's where we see some of the anxiety, in the gardening community. So I think, that's why I really like the, this ADAPT program, because, yeah, anybody can come in and they kind of feel like they're contributing to something, to this understanding that's gonna, help us, with our food crops. So yeah, and I think that that's why we see the growth in that is because of, uh, the feelings they have around climate emergency.
Anyone else want to respond to that?
I can just add, like on my campus, and I don't know, Jen, you might actually have, your own experience on your campus, but I do feel like students are more aware of the climate crisis, but I also find that they're like very cynical about everything. I think they're just like really burnt out on political scene and just everything. So it's really hard to get them to attend things. But we try. So it is tough.
Yeah, and and with that, yeah, and with that, I'd like to, talk about this attendance, because we all put on something, and you only have a few people show up here or there. But I think, it's important to remember that there are so many things going on today that people are doing, and our collective efforts are making the impact. And yes, and yeah, maybe it's the one button, maybe we've got a room and like, you know, I've showed up and there's been a room of 200. I went back to the same thing the next year and maybe it was the title of my thing and there were 15 people in there, you know, but to not be discouraged because this isn't the only thing happening today. You know, there are so many things happening today. And so we just got to keep, you know, kind of, we were talking about this, you know, how much do you do in a year? You know, how much public engagement do you do in a year? And as long as we just continue to keep that public engagement, we'll just keep nicking and nicking away at this. So.
I just want to, like, that's such a great point. And I think too, sometimes just like advertising an event, even if people don't come to it, it kind of makes it seem like this is something my community cares about, and it brings it to mind more often. So I think it's worth a try to keep trying to engage with your audience.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
Oh, sorry, go ahead, Michael.
well, and it just reminds me, and you know, I was at, you know, speaking at this garden expo in Madison, and you know, there was somebody in there, you know, they were talking about pollinators, and they were saying 10 years ago, no one would hardly show up to this talk. But then now the room is full. And so I do think you see, you know, they weren't discouraged by that 10 people that time and kept doing it. And now the rooms are full. And so you just got to keep at it. But yeah.
Yeah, no, I think that's very true. It's very true. This is all really great. I just saw that there is another person that specifically asked Michael Lyons about if there is Seed Saver organization in Canada. Michael, does Seed Saver Exchange service Canada?
Yeah, I mean, you know, the exchange can go to Canada, you know, we can send varieties to Canada. Yeah, there's not as many difficulties sending things to Canada. But yeah, so we do have participants in Canada. And yeah, we've got people that request the yearbook and do we've got people that list, you know, we've got Canadians that list in the exchange. So yeah, and you know, they have to make their prices appropriate, you know, to be able to handle the shipping and all that to get the seeds to the people in the US and whatnot. But yeah, we've got interaction in Canada.
Awesome. Thanks. All right, I'm going to just ask one more question and then I'm going to leave a little bit of time for folks to talk about the climate circles at the end. But just to kind of end, we talked about a lot of different types of programs. A lot of you have established these for many years, but for a librarian or a small library that maybe hasn't done anything like this, what would be like your one piece of advice or recommendations for how to get started with doing something like this? So how to kind of start small. Or you can talk a little bit about how you kind of started what you did. I'm going to return to you again, Mandy, because I know that you said you founded your sustainability interest group at your campus. So what advice would you give for something like that?
Yeah, sure. For me, it was just simply like you can create a new team or committee and just asking the folks at your library, would you like to form this team with me? And it may be a small team at first, and then kind of asking them, like, what is your interest in sustainability and really focusing there first, in terms of the activities that you do.
Anyone else want to jump in?
I would
Lisa?
say if you have an extension office in your area, like that is a really easy way to get programming for free into your organization. And if you don't have a master gardeners or master naturalists, see if you can find you know, some other nonprofit or some nature center that wants to do things with you. And it might take you going to them and doing story time at the nature center first, but then they want to reciprocate. They have things they want to share their passion too. So look for other people in the community that can help you do the programming. And yeah, I mean, that's what and they'll bring their people and you'll bring their people to, you know, you'll bring library patrons to the garden and they'll bring naturalists to the library. So it's a win-win.
Yeah, I just want to echo that. Look for your experts, look for your local experts, and put one foot in front of the other. Don't be worried to try new things and have them fail, and just keep on pushing, because it'll work eventually.
Yeah, we end up having, we have folks that, maybe kind of started in, adapt, or, and kind of move their way on up. And, what's really neat is when we call on them to put on seed school. Like, here, you're now, I'm calling, there's one gal I called in to be, an expert in botany, but she was a person that had attended a seed school about 7 years ago. And so now I was able to bring her back on as an expert. And so it's really awesome to reconnect to them, and then them to kind of like, look, only X amount of years ago, I was at my first seed school, and now I'm here doing this. And folks really like to share those experiences because they should be proud of them, and how they've kind of evolved and really done this. So, yeah, just some of those community members, and just, getting them involved. And they're often, honored to speak and just happy to share that knowledge. And so, and I think that that can also be really impactful, because that, that's why I don't even like when we do a seed school. It's like an ask the expert kind of thing. I don't like that expert or that disconnect from, I just want to, it just shows like all these things are tangible. And so, yeah, our community, again, just coming back and regurgitating the knowledge that they've used. Yeah, it's been great for us.
Okay, well, I just want to say one last thank you to all of our panelists today. They were incredible. It was so nice to hear about all of these experiences. I hope there's a lot that you can take away from this session. I'm going to reshare my screen, and I think I'm turning it over to Justin and Lisa to share a little bit about the climate circles, if I am correct. So let me do that real quick.
Yeah, thanks. That was a great conversation and set of ideas. And so, yeah, there was something that Mandy said where action is a good way to combat anxiety. And so that is the purpose of the climate circle. We hold this space to like dig into these ideas and reflect on them and come up with ideas of how you might carry out these ideas at your home institution with the partners at the library where you work. So the meeting is going to be next Friday, November 8th at 1 p.m. Eastern time. I will let me just grab a link to the Zoom link for you all this if you're interested in signing up. Daisy, Nip, and I will be facilitators. And oh, the slide is wrong. Oops. Oh well. Let's see. Make sure I send this out to the webinar here. Oh, let's see. Where is the STEM panelists? I'm not sure if I have the capability to send this to everyone because of my settings. If someone could send out the link for me, I'll send that to Amanda, and then we can just send it out to the Zoom link. So anyhow, I think I've said everything that I needed to say about the climate resiliency, or for the climate circle. It's a facilitated conversation. You don't have to have participated in the first session of the first circle. We just welcome you to come and join us for a conversation. Thanks.
Okay, is that all? Amanda, do you have anything to wrap up, or?
No, that's everything for this session. Thank you so much, everyone, for attending, and for all of our panelists for presenting with us today. Like we said, there are different registrations for each event as part of the series, and you can find all of that through the website. If you've not taken the survey already, we'd really appreciate that feedback. So thank you so much. Have a great day, everybody.
Thank Thank you. I think that went really well.
Yep. I thought it was great. Can you hear me? Am I on?
Yep,
Okay.
you're on.
All right.
Thank
Thank
you
you
so
so
much,
much.
Alice.
And thank you, Jennifer and Amanda.
Mhm.
Another one down.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Talk to you
Bye.
later. Bye.
Bye.